My name's Jason Nash. I work at Travelport. I'm sure many of you have heard of Travelport. We're what used to be known as a GDS in the market previously. We used to be Galileo, WorldSpan and Apollo, and Travelport was the rebranded name of those companies. We've been on a journey over the last few years to actually reposition Travelport in a very different model. And we now talk about being a travel commerce platform because we're actually doing a lot of work around extending out the capabilities of the travel space and really helping to facilitate other travel organizations to work within our platform and to be able to generate revenues around the platform. So what I'm here to talk about specifically today is the work we've been doing around Travelport's Accelerator and Incubation program. So we kicked this program off about 2 years ago. Like many businesses, we had the idea of capturing ideas within the organization for new revenue opportunities, new product ideas. And so we actually used to have an idea box, like many businesses do, and you would write your idea down or send it into an email, and you'd post it into the box, and pretty much at that point you would be done. The problem with those kind of programs is that you create an awful lot of ideas, but nobody owns the idea to turn it into the next great product, the next great innovation. And so we turned that program very much on its head, and we started to look for a better way of doing that. And about at the same time, I read a book called The Lean Startup, which is an awesome, awesome book. And much of the language that we hear when we hear about people pivoting a business, when we hear about growth hypotheses and some of these terminologies that come out of a lot of the startup community, they come from this book. And so if you're interested in setting up your own travel business, your own startup, I would absolutely recommend this book 110% for you to read it. It's literally turned on my head the way that I used to look at product management, which is my background. That's where I originally came from. So we decided to set up Travelport Labs and the Travelport Accelerator Incubator, and we gave it a mission so that people on the program had very clear view of what we were trying to achieve. And the mission is up there. It was to enable the conception of new products and platform modules to validate the market fit for them and shepherd them to product market fit with increasing reliability and decreasing cost. And the really important language in there is validate the market. This is not about making revenues at this early stage. This is all about getting out of the office and meeting customers and prospects and really understanding from them whether the idea for the new product that you have is going to gain market traction. And there's a big difference between a product that truly fits in the market and one that doesn't. And that generally tends to be the velocity that that product is adopted by customers in the market. And we know increasingly that in today's world, it's possible to make $1 billion business at a faster rate than any time in history. And we're seeing more and more of these $1 billion businesses created. I think the very latest ones are happening in as short a time as 24 months now. Previously, if you looked back 10 years ago, it would be 10 years to get to be $1 billion business. And there are a number of factors that have changed that enable this hyper acceleration of growth in businesses, and I'll talk a little bit about them as we go through. But things like social, the internet, cloud computing, all of these elements have come to play to drive an increased velocity in the speed of new business development. So we set ourselves a mission, and we put a plan together, and the plan was to engage entrepreneurially minded people to explore new products and ideas, and to create an incubator stroke accelerator where teams can test, pitch their ideas using lean startup principles. And so we introduced a program where for 4 months you could join the incubator and effectively test your idea. So no longer was the idea box just a write it down and forget it. It was actually you committing your time and having the Travelport manager that worked with you agree that you could have your time freed up to focus on this great new idea. Right now, we're in the middle of class 3. We had 2 classes that ran last year, and as I said, we're halfway through class 3 this year. Our very first class only had internal Travelport employees. Our second class had 4 groups of Travelport employees and 1 external candidate. And our third class that's running now has 5 external companies going through it and 2 internal Travelport employees, 2 employee groups. So what we're seeing is that there's a real interest out in the market to actually work with us and get involved in these startup classes. We actually have an application process that I'll talk to a little bit later, but what I'm guessing is that some of you in the room here are interested in having your own travel startup, and ultimately that's what this program is about. It's about giving you the opportunity to be able to work with Travelport to make that dream a reality. The other goal we set ourselves around this program was to say, we don't just want more booking tools, right? The industry has got enough booking tools right now. What we're looking for here is something disruptive, something that is going to change the models that we see. And you know, the classic examples of this that we all hear about right now are the Uber, the Airbnbs, right? But Uber is a great example of an organization that has truly disrupted the market and has gained velocity at a very high rate, primarily because it solves some problems very well. And the 3 things that I normally say to people when they're looking at their startup idea are, the first one is the problem that your solution addresses, is that problem urgent? i.e., is it something that people want to fix now? If the problem is urgent, then it's probably a problem worth going and solving. The next question we ask is that problem pervasive? Do lots of people in the market have the problem? So is it urgent, and do people want to have that problem fixed? Are there lots of people out there that want to get it addressed? And the third thing is, are people willing to pay for it? Is there a business model here that we can create that I can make money off? Because if those 3 standards aren't true, your travel idea is probably little more than a pipe dream, and it's not going to make a new, compelling company or product. So part of the reason for doing this was that in this day and age, it's innovate or die. The speed that new businesses come along and replace the incumbents is changing. The dynamics of that have changed, and the technology has changed dramatically. So at Travelport, we recognize the innovator's dilemma, and it's destroy or be destroyed. And it's embracing that and understanding how we can build new businesses in partnership with our own people and also with people outside the organization. So you might be asking, well, why is now the right time to think about being in a travel startup? What's happening in the world that makes these things appropriate? Well, there are a number of factors that are really driving this. The first one is the consumerization of technology. I would like to ask the question, who in the audience does not have a smartphone in their pocket? Anybody got one of those classic Nokias or anything that isn't smart? Be honest. Absolutely none of you, right? In literally 10 years, we've gone from nobody having smartphones to everybody having smartphones. That has changed the environment. And what's great about that as well is that those smartphones have made even old-timers out there that used to hate technology love it, because it's so damned easy, anybody can just use them, right? Back to the old Apple analogies of make it easy and people will use it. The next thing that's happening is that we have the Internet of Things. The cloud computing technology that's out there now means that any of you in this room can go and sign up for Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure and have unlimited computing power to build your great idea. That means that where historically, if you wanted to go and build a new travel startup, you needed to invest in servers and data and all of these things that would take time, now you can do that literally in seconds. Within seconds, you can have a web server provisioned, you can have unlimited computer power for you to build your next idea. Also, believe it or not, there is a lot of money available for people with good ideas to get investment right now. And if you have got a compelling idea, it is easy, believe it or not, to find money to get investment in these ideas. There is money in the VC community and other areas. And in Travelport's own incubator, we're investing small $30K sums to encourage people into the program and to get them to work with us on the investment. The other final piece is that there is a proliferation of APIs. And Travelport ourselves, we have our universal API, which is a single API for getting traditional airline content, low-cost carriers, hotels, rail, etc., etc. But there are many, many other people's APIs out there as well. And we don't insist people that come through the Travelport incubator have to use Travelport's APIs. You can use anybody's APIs. It's the idea that we're interested in. It's the people and the passion and the energy for the idea that we're interested in working with. Some people say, why is Travelport doing this? Why is a traditional business trying to get involved in this space? Well, really it's a matter of risk. If you're a successful business today, and Google talk about this explicitly, and they say what they're most worried about is the thing that's coming that's going to make them irrelevant in the market. And the famous quote here is, you know, this is really innovative approach, but we can't consider this. It's never been done before. That's the kind of language that you hear in big businesses, unless you have an area where this can be nurtured and you can be allowed to break the rules and be allowed to do the unconventional thing. So that's really what we're about. And it's about also having a forum for our own people in Travelport to be able to have their ideas have the same recognition as the external ideas that we're working through. We're also using a number of new and unique tools. The screenshot in the background there is something called the Business Model Canvas. It's one of the tools that gets taught in entrepreneurship at Harvard University, for example. And we are working very closely with some of these new tools, giving people mentoring and exposure to these new ways of working. We're also using lean and agile approaches to the way that we are building the solutions as well, which again is super important. The whole process around the lean startup is around getting the product, the minimal viable product, into the hands of customers as quickly as possible so that you can learn from them. And this idea of quick feedback loops that allow you to understand from customers whether the groundbreaking idea you think you have is actually really fitting with customers. And that can be done through prototypes or a number of other things. We also expose people during the incubation program to mentoring. We mentor them with technology expertise, with customer experience and user interface expertise, and with product management expertise to help people understand what they need to do to be successful. And we have about 7 people in the mentoring team, plus we bring in external mentors to help support them as well. So industry figures or people in the broader Travelport organization. And I think that it's this sharing and mentoring where a lot of the value comes from the program, because we're exposing people to new ways of working and thinking. One of the tools we use is the business model canvas, and I've got a short video here that explains it in a little bit of detail. And this is one of the videos we use during the program to actually give people exposure to it.
For each segment, we have a specific value proposition. These are the bundles of products and services that create value for your customers. Channels describe through which touchpoints are interacting with customers and delivering value. The customer relationships outline the types of relationships you're establishing with your customers and how you're acquiring and retaining them. The pricing mechanisms through which your business model captures value are documented under revenue streams. Key resources show which assets are indispensable in your business model, so you can describe the infrastructure you need to create, deliver, and capture value. The key activities show which things you need to be able to perform well. The key partners show who can help you leverage your business model, since you won't own all key resources yourself, nor will you perform all key activities. Once you understand your business model's infrastructure, you'll also have an idea of its cost structure. Any business model can be mapped this way: 9 building blocks working to reinforce and strengthen each other. But before you make a model for yourself, it helps to see what a breakthrough business model looks like in action. Like this one. Low-cost airlines revolutionized air travel thanks to their disruptive business model. Let's first look at their value proposition. A low-cost airline offers ultra-cheap flights to their main customer segment, budget travelers, by adopting a no-frills policy. And this leads to additional revenue streams, because customers pay for their ticket and additional fees on items like food and drink, priority boarding, and luggage. The airlines save even more money through their choice of channels, selling only through call centers and the internet, making for efficient, if not always convenient, customer relationships that are automated and often impersonal. Okay, that covers the right side of the canvas, the part everyone can see. The left side of the canvas is what's going on backstage. Like their choice of key resources, they reduce maintenance and training costs by using a single aircraft model for the whole fleet. And they only fly to cheap airports where it's cost efficient to land, or where they even get paid to touch down. Planes that do land have quick turnarounds, so they get back in the air earning money as quickly as possible. And they form key partnerships with others in the travel industry, like car rental, hotel, and insurance companies. Finally, under cost structures, all maintenance, training, airport, and call center costs are trimmed to their lowest levels. All of these pieces working together make their fares almost impossible for traditional airlines to compete with. There's nothing superior about these airlines except their business models. They're reaching an entirely new segment of travelers out of reach of traditional airlines. Cutting out costs is pretty exciting, right? But wait, just because it's successful for discount airlines doesn't mean it will work for your idea. Luckily, the business model canvas allows you to iterate many models and test them quickly. Let's get started with your own business idea.
So that's a video through a company called Strategizer that we use when we go through the first week. We have the kickoff week where we actually start to teach people how to use these tools. We teach them about the Lean startup book and the methodology that goes along with it. And then we have a midpoint session and a demo day at the end of the incubation process. At demo day, we actually arrange for external venture capital companies to be at demo day. And we also have our own Travelport senior leadership team attend demo day as well, so they themselves can see not only the internal but also the external ideas that went through the incubation process. So at the end of the 4-month period, people have really had an opportunity to validate the idea and to work with their teams to build out that validated learning that's so important. One of the critical factors that we are already seeing even after 2.5 classes is that it all comes down to the passion and energy of the people that are running through the courses. A lot of the drive for startups is around having somebody that truly believes in the idea that they're building. And provided it meets that gold standard that I talked about earlier of being urgent, pervasive, and that people are willing to pay for, the next big factor comes down to them is, do you have a core team of people that can help execute that idea? And do those people have the passion and energy to drive it through? What we have within the incubator are mentors who can help work through that. So our CX people would help you visualize what the interface might look like. Our technology people would be able to help advise on how to go and build that out. And of course, our product people would help you prioritize what set of features to build in what order based on their experience and knowledge in the area. That group in there is actually the team that actually are doing the mentoring. The team is actually based in Denver. The team also foster this idea of ideation. So the idea of having a good product idea is not something that you sort of have. You have to build that out and iterate through it. A lot of the new compelling businesses that we see, the likes of Airbnb, the likes of Uber, these are businesses that actually are platform businesses, but they're businesses that actually have an idea that is not really that radical. It's the business model that's the radical piece, the way they have reinvented the model to make their own model so compelling. And so one of the things that we teach as well is the idea of ideation and having a number of ideas to run through and iterate through, and not just sort of fixating on the very first idea you have, but actually managing that through the process. So we have a very clear process that's well documented, initially starting with the idea, then having concepts and screening, so that's creating wireframes and the like, doing what we call customer discovery, that's a number of customer interviews, interviewing customers one-on-one, but also using tools like usertesting.com, where we can actually put wireframes onto user testing groups who will actually come back and give you feedback. And using a number of pretty innovative tools that we've brought together to help us validate these things. The purpose of this is to ultimately get customer validation. Again, what you want here is to find the product idea that is like pushing a stone down a hill, not one that's like pushing it up a hill. If your customers are really not sold on the idea, you've probably got the wrong idea. Ultimately, at the end of the 4-month class and demo day, Travelport make a decision around whether we want to invest some more in the idea or whether we say, thanks very much for being on the program, we hope you enjoyed it, but good luck with your future. And we let the external candidates get on. And in the case of our internal candidates, we choose whether to move that idea forwards or we let the people go back into their day jobs. In the case of class 2, we actually had an idea which we called Travel Care, which is something we're working on for helping to manage IROP activities in the airspace, for example. And that's an idea that's been moved forwards and is actually being built out right now by the team. In the case of class 3, these are the 5 external companies that we currently have working through the class. So we have a company called Event Assembler that are looking at group booking activities. We have a company here called Taggable. Taggable have photo, video, and immersive 360 video that literally can be inserted into a quote or into a website simply through adding a single line URL into that HTML code, and then all of the keywords within there automatically get clicks on, which allow you to see video, photo content. They've discovered that it increases the booking rate of quotes by 80% when video and photo content is embedded into the content. So again, a great company there. The other businesses there, a number of things looking at Nibbler are looking at nightlife aggregation, et cetera, et cetera. So some really interesting ideas. The teams that went through the process all applied through the Travelport Labs website, which, apologies, this slide is slightly out of date. If you go to the site, you'll see the latest dates here. But this is the Travelport Labs website where you can actually get to the application process and apply. The actual process we have is a form and a video, which allows people to video and talk through their idea. That's a really important part of the application because we can get to see how passionate people are and their belief in the idea that they present. There's also then a formal questionnaire that people complete, which with a number of questions in there to help us understand. For class 3, we had 86 applicants for the incubation class. So that's pretty good amount of people applying. Of those 86, we selected 5 external candidates, which were the previous ones that I put up there. So if you're in the room now thinking, I want to apply for this, please do. You can go to travelport.com, click on the labs link, and then click into the Travelport site. You'll see a page like this, but one that has the current dates, not the previous dates up there, and you can go ahead and apply. And we would then love to consider you for entrance into the program and to work with you to understand how we might help your travel idea be the next Uber or Airbnb, if indeed it is that. We wanted to leave some time for Q&A because we recognize that this is quite different from the things that you would traditionally think of Travelport providing. And we also know that from history of running this in other events, there's normally a lot of people that want to know some clarifying questions. So that's the kind of summary of we're trying to get the best, most disruptive travel products into customers' hands faster, whether they are Travelport's ideas and Travelport people's ideas, or whether they're external companies that we work with and we mentor through the program. So, thank you for your time. Do you have any questions for me at all? If you want to raise your hand, I think they'll bring you a microphone so people can hear that. Yes.
You mentioned that Travelport invests in these ideas. Could you elaborate on that? How much do you invest, and do you take equity in it at the early stage?
Yes, so it's a very modest investment. Most of the companies that we're investing in are very early stage ideas. So we tend to invest $30,000 per founder, and that's a maximum of 90K, and that is for 8% equity in the idea. Again, it depends on the number of founders and different things, but basically that's the kind of level. We're talking quite modest levels of investment in the program. What we're really looking for here is people at the very earliest stages. This is kind of even pre-angel investment in some ways. And it's, in a lot of the cases, it's about giving people that 4-month period to really stress test the idea and figure out whether it has legs or not, really.
one follow-up question there. This program is held in Denver, you mentioned?
So the program, the team are actually in Denver that support the program. We have had, for instance, the event assembler guys are based in London. So what they did was they flew out to Denver for the first week, the midweek, and the final week of the program. So that's how they've managed to make it work. In the case of the event assembler people, I'm based in the UK, so I've actually been mentoring that team myself and helping them through the methodology and the program. I have a weekly call with them, and they keep me up to date with their progress, and then I recommend to them things. But they also have access via video conference, etc., to the CX, the technology people, and the product management people back in Denver as well. Any other questions at all? Yes.
What would you personally say that you've seen that excites you the most in terms of travel innovation? What have you seen come out of the labs?
So it's a good question. I think we've seen a number of good ideas that we're testing through. So one idea I saw recently that went through the second class was the idea of a social travel profile, if you like, for lack of a better term. Think of it like LinkedIn, but for travel, but where the industry was sharing a common view of the customer as opposed to it all being in everybody's individual systems. That was a pretty cool idea we saw. The IROP one I spoke to you about, again, particularly around airlines and cancellations, we saw something there that today is handled in a very manual way with bits of paper and clipboards, being considered for something that would use smartphones and electronics, for example. Some of these ideas aren't necessarily always that innovative, but you just look for problems that haven't been solved in a very smart way up until this point. I think the taggable guys that are in the existing program also, again, video and photo content, not that cool on its own, but the idea of being able to just use a single line of HTML, embedding that into your HTML website or your HTML quote, and then having that all just work without a huge amount of integration or dev cost, that's smart way of applying it, for example. You know, I made the comment earlier about the industry doesn't need yet another booking tool. We do see a lot of booking tools or variations on a booking tool. There's only so many ways you can book travel, right? And so although we would consider any option, there's a lot of booking tools out there that I don't think are necessarily going to change the way we book travel, at least the ones that we've seen so far through the program. Thanks. Yes.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Thanks for the talk. I'm AJ, aspiring, hungry and foolish travel entrepreneur. My first question to you is, are you, as a company, are you only looking at tech disruption ideas, or are you open to non-tech travel disruption ideas?
That's a good question. So our only criteria really is that it is travel related and that 50% of what we look at is disruptive. We've not necessarily looked at non-travel ideas, although we did have one, well, we had a handful submitted through the application process for the last class. So people are applying. So far, we haven't put one through, but that was because we didn't necessarily believe in the idea that got submitted. So I would answer that by saying, if you've got one that isn't tech-related, but is travel-related, and you think it is a good idea, please apply. We'd love the opportunity to hear about it.
Thanks. Which brings me to my second question. So you said you had 85 applicants and you brought it down to 5. Can you just give an overview on the criteria through which you judged? Of course, profitability and the basic fundamentals are...
Yeah, so the criteria and the selection process we use is, first of all, it's an open-sourced process. So a number of the startups and incubators and accelerators that are out there have open-sourced their application processes. We've used one of these open-source processes. because we feel that that's the best way of working. We actually have somebody who's one of the mentors on our team that's actually been through the TechStars program, and so he is very intrinsically aware of the kind of process and steps that they go through. He's been a great mentor to helping with things like pitch practice and those ideas. We basically look, and I mentioned the three sort of golden standards for selection. Is it urgent? Is it pervasive? Are people willing to pay for it? The next things we start to look at are the passion in the people, the opportunity size, but not necessarily as total size. In years gone by, you would always look for these ideas to be big market opportunities. Increasingly with social now, if you have a really good idea that's highly segmented to a very small audience, you can still make that idea profitable because the way that the social networks work and the way that you can target micro segments in a way that you couldn't do historically. So although we're looking for a size of opportunity, it doesn't always have to be a large opportunity. And again, I think a lot of this comes down to good segmentation. Better to have a very clear view of a very small audience and be laser focused on that than a lot of the more generic big ideas that cover lots of different groups of customers, because ultimately that becomes a more difficult product to solve for because you need so many features and functions to build that out. So focus again would be one of the other criteria, but that's the loose things that we're looking at. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, in that case, thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you.